producers, technicians, tour managers, and everything you could think of.
Hi, I'm Robyn, and I'm a session musician and DJ.
Hi, I'm Rachel. I'm a theatre technician and a stage manager, and I'm currently in my second year at LIPA.
I'm Nathalie, and I'm a tour manager and event manager.
So my name's Keeley and Rachel. I'm from Liverpool and I still live here and work here. I'm a producer and a sound engineer, but I also not only work in music and theatre as well. So especially with everything that's happening at the moment, I've been doing a lot of pod plays and recording theatre and translating that into audio and sound, which has been quite cool. Yeah, I work in my home studio and record artists, record groups, anyone really, anything to do with audio and sound is me. And yeah, and this is my studio.
So I'm going to start with also the inevitable question. How did you get into it, like the work that you do?
So I was just always kind of obsessed with music. I started playing bass when I was a teenager, decided I wanted to do it professionally. I moved to Liverpool to study at LIPA, actually. That's basically how it all started. And the DJing side of things, it was like a hobby that then just turned into something else as well. And that's kind of basically how I got into it, yeah.
So I kind of started in high school in my performing arts class, because I basically had this class of hooligans who didn't particularly care, and I'm a big stress head, so I made schedules and I made props and I organised all our rehearsals and all that kind of stuff, and that kind of brought me to stage management. And then I joined a tech course at a theatre in Stoke, and I joined my tech team in college and I did our shows there, and it's all just kind of snowballed from those small bits of experience that have led me here.
I always knew I wanted to do something with music, but wasn't quite sure what exactly. Then I studied musicology as a bachelor degree in Utrecht, which is where I'm from, the Netherlands. And then I did an internship at a venue while I was studying there. And I found out what a tour manager is. And I was like, ooh, that sounds good. That's what I want to do. So then throughout my studies, I did loads of volunteering, which really helps with getting experience and networking. And then sort of through the people I met, I fell into tour managing.
To be honest, it was just a lot of dance music and electronic music that started me wanting to learn more about music. I played guitar for quite a while, but when I started getting into electronic, I was like, I really want to know how this all works. So I ended up getting software on my computer and then just playing around for years until something sounded good. And then from there, started working a lot in theatre and doing sound design, and then started producing my own stuff and producing for other people.
Do you all have sort of frequent collaborators with projects that you work on? For example, like it could be theatre companies or like venues that you often DJ for, or bands that you often organise the tours for, or perhaps just talk about some examples of projects you've worked on, your favourite working experiences, things like that.
So at the moment, I play bass for like two Liverpool artists, Amy Stephen and Nikki Cand. Amy, it's just like bass guitar, kind of straight rock and roll kind of stuff. With Nikki, it's a bit more technical. I do bass guitar and synth bass, and I kind of do a lot of sampling and triggering live stuff live and triggering backing tracks and stuff like that. And those are the two main kind of people I work with at the moment.
So I'm a part of the Young Everyman tech group, and before everything went mad, I would help out a lot in their Ev1 space, that's their like black box studio. So I would like help with the rigging and the programming and operating shows and all that kind of stuff. They're like were my main home base that I would help at. But in terms of like a favourite show that I did, I helped on a production called Measuring Up in the Everyman Theatre, which is a show that was made by a woman who was visually impaired. It's about her journey as a writer, and they had a BSL interpreter in the cast, and it was all captions and all audio descriptions, and it was so accessible and hilarious. I love small scale stuff because to me it has a lot of elements of what theatre is supposed to be and what is supposed to be exciting.
It's interesting to hear you talk about YEP, because I did the YEP technicians course as well. It was like, you know, as a tour manager, event manager, I was getting more and more interested in the production side of things. So I did the course there, and Christina, who runs the course, is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love Christy. Such an angel.
Yeah, and after I did the course, I actually worked as a sound technician on the Panto. But yeah, my sort of frequent collaborators, when we're talking about touring, I've been working for Welcome to Night Vale for a number of years. They're an American podcast.
Yeah, I love Night Vale. That's
Yeah, they were my first tour because their tour manager got ill on tour and had to go to hospital, and they needed someone last minute. Poor act's manager recommended me, so I kind of really fell into the deep, and so that was scary but exciting. Yeah, I've been doing loads of tours with them since that was 2014. And then my last year before the pandemic in 2019, I was out with Alice Jemima, who was supporting Sophie Ellis Bextor. And I worked with an amazing American band called Planet Booty. And their music is as fun as their name sounds. And then event-wise, practically since I moved to Liverpool, I've been working with the people from Bidolito, who also organised Liverpool Psych Fest and who organised Future Yard, and have now opened a venue in Birkenhead called Future Yard as well. So I've worked on their various projects. So they're really my sort of Liverpool family.
Those Liverpool projects are so exciting as well. Like, I'm really excited to see what will happen with those. And
probably recently worked with an artist called Amy Webber, and she's a vocalist. And she initially asked me to remix one of her productions that she'd already put out, but she's a jazz singer. It's something I'd never worked with before, and I was like, this could be really, really interesting to do. So I ended up doing a remix on her track, Not Enough, and it ended up being such a contrast to what the song originally was. So to go from this jazz number that was so lovely and just a really chilled song, and I made it into this future house, electronic, really hard-hitting piece of work. That was probably one of the most enjoyable things I've done recently, working with Amy. And then from there, now we're working on original stuff. Yeah, which is really exciting.
when we first started conducting interviews, we would always ask about people's perception of the representation of women on the scene. Obviously, our project has a lot to do with that. That's the basis it sort of comes from. And they always pointed out that they didn't notice as many, or if any, women working behind the scenes, so in production, in engineering, in management, in anything that's not centre stage. Do you see this as an issue, basically? Do you notice this, and do you think that it's a problem?
There's definitely less women behind the scene, and I feel like so often when I work on a project, it's usually because there's already a girl involved. Girls sometimes tend to hire girls, sometimes it's not always, but it feels like you have to prove yourself a bit more sometimes to get your opinion heard properly. And it's like, I don't know, not every time. It's not just like they believe you.
In theatre, for like tech and crew and all that kind of stuff, I definitely think that there's like a weird split between roles, between genders, which is stupid, but it's just how it is, where we'll often get the stage managers and the designers and the props hands being girls or women, and then the heavy duty stuff like having to rig and doing the programming and that kind of stuff is more men. In my experience, as a girl, I felt a lot less welcome in roles where I was having to do heavy tech and Alex and that kind of stuff, especially in shows where I've been the only girl on the team, and I get patronised a lot more and I get called love and hun and all that kind of stuff and not my name. I had an experience on the last show I was on where I was carrying set into the venue, and a man took the piece of set off me while I was carrying it and said, "Oh, I've got that for you, love." And I was like, I'm paid to be here. I do this.
So
like,
that is so dangerous.
Yeah, it was mad. I feel like I come in as a girl technician and I'm a girl technician. I'm not a technician. It's a lot harder for me to prove myself, and people don't trust my input on stuff, as you said, Robyn, because I'd like to see a change in more equally gendered teams and to drill it into some technicians' heads that it's not a guy's thing and you need to act accordingly and not treat them any differently.
I definitely, in the live music industry, definitely feel like women are a minority. I recognise sort of patronising things you say as well, Rachel. But yeah, how we change that, it's, you know, you can't be what you can't see. It's if you have more role models, then you can be like, oh, I can do that. Yeah, it's kind of the more we get out there, hopefully the more we'll join as well. But I feel like there's a really positive thing going on. There's a group called Women in Live Music, and everyone in there is really helpful to each other. And I have found a sort of mentor through there who is a female TM who is like, you know, anything you want to ask me, wherever you are in the world, just ask me. It's definitely a problem. There's not one solution to it. we all just need to realize that anyone who's capable to do the job can do the job, whatever gender they are.
Yeah, because I think it is the first steps that are hardest to make environments that we feel included in and that we want to work in.
I actually had one experience working at a festival in the production team, and my direct colleague said to me, "Oh, well, it's weird that you're a girl." And I was like, "Why?" He's like, "Well, girls don't work in production." And I'm like, "Why not?" And then we did a loadout for Radiohead, and he was like, "I'd like to make a point." I was like, "What is that?" He was like, "Well, you were the only girl there, so, you know, I was right." And I was like, "Why do you think that is?" And he was kind of like, "I don't know." So I said, "Well, because people like you make us feel like we don't belong here. So if you stop saying that kind of stuff, more women will be interested, because we don't want to hear that we don't belong somewhere."
On one hand, you kind of want to normalize it, but you also, there's ways to point it out, you know what I mean? Like, there's ways to raise the issue with people and notice the lack of women, and there's ways to sort of be like, "Oh, the only women are you, then you don't belong here." And then sometimes you just kind of want to keep your head down and get on with it. And it's like you said, Rachel, you don't want to be pointed out as like a female engineer. You're just an engineer, you know?
You know what it is? I think for me, because I've done a lot of work by myself, I hear all these stories all the time, and like I definitely feel for a lot of people. I suppose I'm lucky, but I've never really experienced it myself. Maybe that is because I do a lot of stuff by myself, or because I've been self-employed, and it's like I'm not going to work for certain companies. I've never really experienced it, and for me, a lot of the time, I try and use it to my advantage. Like, being the only, if I go into a room, there's 10 producers, the chances are they're all going to be lads, and that's fine. But by being the girl, I naturally stand out. So I try and use that to my advantage.
Do you produce women more than you produce men? Do you work with, like, if you're working with an artist, is it more female artists? Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, without doubt. Yeah, the majority of people I've worked with has been female identifying, and even like theatre companies, it is, to be honest, and to be honest, I've never thought about that, and I don't know if it's coincidence or anything.
It's weird, like, I find that kind of thing as well. Quite often, the people that are really good at their jobs and know what they're doing, they don't care if you're a woman or not. If they know what they're talking about, don't care if you're female or not. But there's just so many people that it is like a boys' club sometimes. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
So another thing that I've broached the topic of before in previous panels is finance. So are any of you freelance or commissioned base, or work on a voluntary basis, or is it a mix? And how would you like to see this aspect of things change in the future? Because I feel like given the pandemic, we've all been sort of given the chance to reassess. I was just wondering what you sort of make of that, and how, if you think the way that creatives are paid should be changed.
So I'm currently still in training. So a lot of my work experience has been as a volunteer or as a placement or whatever. I definitely think that there's a problem, especially for students, where we'll be expected to do roles on shows for experience and not being paid for them, when there are people who we're working with on the team who are doing our same job who are getting paid for it. You have to commit a lot of time to production. To not be paid for that seems kind of strange when it's, you know, it's a full commitment. It's a full job that you're taking on. I'd like to see some more paid opportunities for students.
I kind of do a mix of the three, like freelance, commission, and voluntary. A lot of the stuff that I get paid to do is like functions, like if it's playing in a band or DJing, and like I've done some like sound design for like small commercials and stuff like that. And that is the paid work. Stuff that I'm really passionate about is pretty much all voluntary. You want to keep working hard at it in the hope that it becomes your paid day job. Yeah, I think I would love to be paid more for the stuff that I want to do. There's like a gap. There's like you're paid really well, or you're not paid at all. Like I feel like there's like a kind of gap there, and I don't really know like how it would change. Like I would love like something magical to happen, but it's just more funding for the arts. I think basically that would be where it would be solved, wouldn't it?
It's a really difficult conversation, but I don't think it should be. And especially being on Instagram and being quite active on socials, I definitely get a lot of people messaging me, asking me to produce things for them, remix it for them. I'm now at a point where I will just say to people, do you have a budget for it, before getting into, okay, it's just like a passion project and a favour. And I fully get it, because when I first started, like I'd ask singers to just sing on my songs because I didn't know what I was doing and I wanted to work it out. But like I think there's a level of self-confidence in your skill set and going, okay, I've got stuff that I can offer these people, so I'm going to ask them, do they have a budget? And I found it that, like, that sentence, I don't know why it's helpful for me, but I feel confident enough to say that to anyone. And if they just say no, okay, cool, what's your aim, what's your goal? Because don't get me wrong, if it's one of my friends, or like someone's a filmmaker of one of my friends and they need a little 3-minute track, like, I'm going to give it to them for free because they're my friend. But, like, you know, if a company's approaching you, you need to decide whether it's going to be worth it, because at the moment I don't really have much free time, so it's not beneficial to give my time away for free if the experience isn't worth it. And I feel like if they haven't got a budget, maybe if you're a little bit further on your career, that experience might not be worth it, doing it for free. And it might be more beneficial for someone upcoming to get that voluntary opportunity instead, because I did a lot of voluntary sound design and mixing and stuff at the beginning, and now I don't really do that. And I think once you start expecting to be paid, you sound like it's never really a transitional thing. I think you just decide, nah, I need to be paid now because I'm good at what I do.
I think that in the live music industry, I think there is a problem with people expecting people to do things for free. It's like they decide that you don't have enough experience, or because you're young. Like, sometimes some people have asked me, oh, are you a student? And I was like, no, I graduated 6 years ago, or whenever they ask me that. And they think you look young, and they go, oh, if you want to do this for experience, do it for free. It's always causing really big discussions in the groups on Facebook as well. Sometimes people are asked to, like, drive on a tour and do merchandise for £50 per show. And it's like, well, if you count all the hours in the day, that is so much less than minimum wage. And that's not fair. And it's probably not safe as well, because that person is just doing too much work, getting exhausted, and probably worrying about how they're going to pay their rent. I think that is quite a big problem with that. While in the theatre world, they have a union who have, like, a rate sheet that you can download from their website. There is nothing like that for the music industry, and I think there needs to be. And as well, I think there is also a gender pay gap. I didn't know until someone told me, but a festival I worked at, a female colleague was like, you know, that the guys who work with us, they get paid almost double. And she was kind of saying how she found out about all of that. And I had no idea from the way that we were all working together. And, you know, I just expected everything to be fair. But I think with freelancing, which I'm a freelancer, it's very much a culture of keep quiet what you get paid. Like, don't tell the others what you get paid. Because, you know, if we're transparent about it, then some people might have a problem with that. It should be transparent, because we should want ourselves and the people we work with to get paid a fair wage. We wouldn't want to point fingers or whatever. It should be fair for everyone. It is difficult with so many freelancers, and yeah, the voluntary experience, definitely when you're a student, I did loads of it. I did a bit of it after I graduated. But at some point, it's like, well, if I do this for free for you and I'm asking money from someone else, they're going to say, oh, but I heard you did it for free for this other person. It just becomes really difficult. And there should just be sort of a rule book almost, so we can all just pay our rent and be fair.
In very recent news, the government have rejected the offer of visa-free tours by musicians to the EU. So perhaps, Nathalie, how do you expect this to sort of affect musicians in the UK? Do you think it will be harder for smaller bands to tour? Perhaps, like, you may not. It may be difficult to say at this stage, but what do you think of that?
You know, obviously, I don't know all the details. I did see a post yesterday from Viva La Visa, who are a company that provide visas for artists. And they said that an important thing with the news that came out is that everyone's talking about visas while what they mean is work permits. So, like, if you want to go do a tour in America, you have to apply for a really extensive visa. That's really expensive. You have to answer all kinds of questions and prove who you are and all that kind of thing. While a work permit, I think, is a bit more administration based. So you just go, I'm going for these dates. This is my name. You pay a fee and that's it. That's from what I understand. But, you know, I don't know all the ins and outs. What I read from the article yesterday was that the UK rejected the sort of visa-free or work permit-free travel because they didn't want to provide the same to European musicians coming to the UK. which is interesting because the live music industry is so huge in the UK. It was absolutely booming before we went into the pandemic. They're making it harder for their own musicians to go out there, and they're making it harder from musicians outside of the UK to come here, which is going to lose them a lot of money. So what I think is likely to happen is, yeah, those tours will still happen, but not everyone will have the budget for all the paperwork and the fees they have to pay. So I think we're going to see a lot more extensive UK tours by artists. So like normally, maybe if a UK artist would do a European tour, they would include like London, Manchester, Glasgow, you know, a few of the bigger cities. I think now they might just do an extensive UK tour and then separately do just a European tour where, you know, they pay the fees and they probably do more shows so they can make sort of earn the money back for all those fees. And I think the same for artists outside the UK. They might just skip the UK and just do a European tour without coming to, you know, London and the other big cities they would normally do. But that's just my prediction.
So my next question was going to be about how the lockdown has impacted your work. Have you all had to come up with creative ways to keep working through the lockdown, or obviously for some of the roles that you work in, perhaps restrictions have made it impossible to collaborate on projects? I thought maybe we could start with Robyn, because I've seen that you've done some live DJ sets, isolation, stuff like that.
So yeah, that just kind of came about because when lockdown started, it was like juggling 5 or 6 things and like absolutely nothing. And I saw quite a few like people streaming and stuff like that. There's like, I don't know if you know Boiler Room. They're like a DJ streaming platform. And I was like, I think I could do something like that. And I had been trying to get stuff working, like just doing it on my phone. And I had a friend staying with me at the time who is a videographer and edits and stuff like that. He does stuff under Sketch Benjamin. And he suggested that we work together on it basically and make it into much more of a bigger production with like multiple camera angles and that kind of thing. It was just something for us both to do while we were like trapped in the house basically. Yeah, that basically, from doing that, I found I ended up doing like LDM and stuff like that from putting those videos up there, because I found a lot of people, definitely people who know me quite well, like knew that I was DJing, but then people maybe I hadn't spoken to in a while was like, oh, I didn't know you did this. Like, it was a really good kind of way of like showing people that I also DJ and that kind of thing. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I want to do more.
But I bet it was, you know, different from DJing to a crowd, but still nice that you can.
It is weird. Like any kind of performance is working with the audience and going, oh, okay, they're not into this, let's change it this way. So it is weird just being on your own going, I think this is going well. I think this is fine. Like, I hope it is.
Yeah, so no work at all, touring wise, event wise. I worked on one show during the lockdown, which was the first show at Future Yard in Birkenhead. That was socially distanced, small capacity. They have a really good ventilation system, so it was all COVID safe. But then soon after that, cases went up in Liverpool. There were more restrictions, so they haven't done any shows since. They did a few shows without an audience that they live streamed. But so that was my one show. I've been working in little jobs outside of the industry just to pay the bills. 2021 is going to be a bit different for me, which is great. So I applied for the Arts Council grant that was developing your creative practice, and I was successful. So I will be able to do some learning and developing, and my whole project is all about making touring greener. I'll be learning all about how we can put, you know, sustainability solutions on tour and in events, and I'll be doing that by doing some placements with a few organizations and interviewing people and just learning loads. So yeah, that's really exciting.
That's really interesting and so exciting as well. That's brilliant. Congrats for the grant. Yeah.
Being in the pandemic, and obviously a lot of it has been horrible, but with the live music industry, because pretty much everyone is just at home, and while they normally would be all over the world and super busy, it's really created loads of little communities online. Women in Live Music have done a webinar series where I hosted 2 of them. I think you can look back to them on their page. But there's just been so much going on and people being very open to connect. And every time in one of the groups someone says, can I interview a tour manager for my dissertation? I've just gone, yep, don't have anything else to do. So, happy to help. I feel people have become way more open because they have the time to do all of that now. So I think that's a nice positive thing that's come out of this downtime.
I actually got to do my first paid show over lockdown. I was asked to be in the crew for a production called Once Upon a Panto, because it's Panto season. And a lot of theatres, they tried to do it in any capacity that they could. I was tested and we moved into a bubble together, all the cast and the crew. And it was for a filmed show. So it didn't do anything that shows normally do, where there's a rehearsal period and then tech and then shows. There was just a week that we had for the whole thing. I was the assistant stage manager, so I was on props and set painting, and I was also the back end of the panto cow, which was my claim to fame in the show. And it was just crazy, like, because everything that I've ever learned about theatre kind of got flipped on its head with having to do everything safely for COVID. Even just like a lot of the energy in panto comes from having a live audience and being able to play stuff up if the audience is enjoying it, or to move jokes or take them out and that kind of stuff. So it feels like a big risk to go into a show and have no idea how an audience is going to respond to it. But it was loads of fun and a very strange first experience in the professional industry.
I think for me, it was a bit more beneficial. As we spoke about earlier with the theatre companies, a lot of theatres now were deciding to convert the plays that would be on a stage in a live show into audio plays and into pod plays. So I found myself getting more work because people wanted to translate live theatre into audio, which was good for me. And also on a personal level, it made me create more. So I ended up doing little mini video series and putting them on YouTube, and I just had so much time to create. Now I feel like I've grown so much as an artist as well, just for all this free time I had to be creative. I mean, people couldn't come to the studio, so that was a bit of a negative, obviously, but it hasn't been too bad for me, if I'm honest.
I was also going to ask about your YouTube videos and stuff, because I feel like that really sort of has gone hand in hand with your creative work, and I feel like people have found these alternatives to complement the work they already do now, especially as you're saying, like now that you've been given a time. So Rachel, I noticed that you're a student at LIPA. How has it been as an educational experience, but also as an opportunity to find creative collaborators?
For LIPA, it's so social, and they put so much effort into giving us loads of mixers and theme nights and opportunities for us to meet people on other courses and other year groups to encourage us to work on projects together. That led me on to my first student show. It's all those opportunities where we network in between our students, and the idea is that after we graduate, we'll probably be the people to give each other jobs. It's a very tight community at LIPA, but it's also a place to push you out of your comfort zone at the same time. So yeah, it's a really awesome place to be creatively.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like it definitely fits the description that most people attach to Liverpool as a place, like a friendly place, and people on the creative scene will be there for each other and offer each other opportunities, which is really nice to hear. I was going to say, Nathalie, as a tour manager, you've obviously travelled to many countries, but what would make the Liverpool scene stand out for you, perhaps?
Obviously, it's difficult when you just get a snapshot of another place to understand its music scene or anything, but having worked on loads of shows in Liverpool, what I love is how supportive the music scene is. Like, if you go to a show, there'll be like 3 local Liverpool bands in the audience. There's just so much passion. They just really love to support each other. People working in music, they go to each other's shows as well. There's loads of overlap with people working for different festivals and promoters and organisations. So I think it's just quite a close scene.
For sure, absolutely. Briefly outline any projects that you're working on at the moment, or the sort of ambitions that you have for 2021.
So I'm working on trying to get my own music out there. That's basically the end of last year and start this year is kind of the focus on. My hope was to have it ready for when gigs started happening again, which maybe is going to be later than I thought it was going to be. Yeah, that's kind of my main focus at the moment. And then this current lockdown, I'll have lots of time to do it. So that's basically my main focus.
I'm supposed to start a show on Monday, which obviously isn't happening. But my next show is going to be the trial at Lipper as the deputy stage manager. I should be going on tour at the end of March with the same company who did the panto, with a production of The Wizard of Oz. If God allows that to happen, then I'll be production manager on a show called The Wedding at the end of this year at Lipper. And that's my plans for the foreseeable future, basically.
As I was saying, I'll be working on my own development project for Greener touring and events. One exciting thing in there is I am working for that project with Future Yard, the venue that's open in Birkenhead, and they want to be the first carbon neutral venue in the UK, or grassroots venue. I believe there's like a couple of theatres that claim that, but so like a grassroots music venue, and they're doing that in collaboration with Liverpool John Moores University. I'll be part of the team at Future Yard to help make that happen. So that's an exciting thing that will develop across the year.
That's really exciting, yeah.
I think for me, probably to continue working with new people, and also now I've gone down this route of videography and making videos, which I'm finding such an interesting and exciting thing to do. Probably just continue with that, make more videos when I can, work with more people, yeah, and just keep trying to tell stories and make interesting content.